What's up? How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about The Sea Beast, which is a Netflix original movie from 2022. I have seen this movie before, only a couple years back, but honestly I thought it was really good and I wanted to give it another watch, and now just felt like the best time to do it since I'm just cycling through all the animated movies that I've seen before. Now, The Sea Beast is one of those movies where there was a little bit of buzz when this movie came out. I don't really remember hearing that much about it from the internet or anything like that. But a couple of my friends watched this movie and I believe they liked it. And so it's one of those movies that was just kind of on my radar, even though I didn't get to it until 2023, 2024. And to me, it's yet another animated movie that just doesn't get the credit it deserves. I think this is a really good movie. The Sea Beast is a monster hunter movie on the high seas, which I think is a good concept. It's fun. I personally love an olden times sort of story out at sea, and I also love the other side of this movie, which is like more of that fantasy aspect. I love fantasy movies as well, and so merging those two just really works for me. It's kind of like a Pirates of the Caribbean situation, not really in terms of story, but in terms of just that fantasy element mixed in with like that old-timey sailor sort of story. Conceptually, I think this is a great idea for a movie. But I will say that this movie isn't just one thing. The first half and second half of the movie are very distinctly different from one another. The first half is this monster hunter, maritime adventure sort of story, and the second half is more of like a quirky creature story. I think both are good, but I think that the first part, that monster hunter sort of dark storyline, makes this movie great. And that second half of the story, where it's more of like a quirky creature story like you'd expect from like other animated movies, that part of the story is good. And so I think this movie could have been peak if this movie had continued with more of like a darker tone. But the fact that it lightens up a bit, and it's still got some elements of seriousness and all that in the second half, but the second half of the movie does have a very different feeling. And in a lot of ways, it's a very different story to the one that you'd expect going into this movie and what we're presented with at the beginning of the film. And so while I think the second half of the movie is still good, it holds it back from being a great movie. I think that The Sea Beast could be classed as a great movie overall. I would honestly say it probably is, but it could have been, capital G great instead of lower G great, if you know what I mean. And I think what this boils down to, unfortunately, is that this movie is for all ages. It's not like a horror or something that's only for adults. And I think that lighter aspect of the movie and the plot is kind of just what holds it back, unfortunately, from being an all-time great movie. But looking at it through the lens of this is a for all ages movie, like you could watch this as a kid, this is a great movie in that respect. Now, the basic premise of this movie is basically How to Train Your Dragon mixed with Moby Dick. It's got those elements there, and if you mashed up those two stories, you'd basically be left with this movie. I think the plot of this movie is a strong plot. It does have its highs and its lows, unfortunately, though. I think the highs outweigh the lows easily. The lows are not even really that low. My first issue with the plot isn't really anything specific. It's just that I know this movie could be peak if it didn't get a little bit more lighthearted in the second half. I already said that, so I'll just brush past that real quick. But something else that I found to be especially sort of troublesome with the plot is that there's this whole scene in the movie, there's this whole part of the plot where one of our characters makes a deal and trades, as they say, everything in exchange for a weapon to kill a monster. And what ends up happening is that he doesn't really lose everything in this movie. From a certain point of view, you could say he loses everything because he loses the way of life that he knows, and he loses some of the people that he cares about in his life. They don't die, mind you, but they're just not in his life at the end of the story in the same way as they were at the beginning of the story. And so you could say that he loses everything, but the way that this movie sets it up, the way that it sounds whenever this deal is being made earlier in the movie, it feels like it should be a lot more than that. And fortunately, a sequel for this movie has been greenlit, and so hopefully that's touched upon more in the sequel, and I hope that comes to fruition a little bit more. And my only other real specific issue with the plot is the ending. I think the ending is a little bit sappy, a little bit feel good, and it doesn't feel quite like the story was leading that way. It feels a little bit out of place because when this story is presented, it's a dark world. people have a certain point of view on different things, and everything just seems sort of dire and serious and all that. And so at the end of the movie, one of our characters presents the people, the masses, with a concept that contradicts everything they've ever known. And I just feel like everyone was so quick to believe it without any real proof being presented. And that just feels to me like, a feel-good, happy ending, which in a lot of movies is a good thing. But I think it really contrasts the story that we're presented with at the beginning of the movie and with the world that's been presented to us. It just feels a bit convenient, and I would have liked it to have gone a little bit differently. Aside from that, I think that this movie has great music. I love the music. The music feels like a mix of fantasy and the old sound of like sea shanties, and so I really think that it fits the tone of this movie, and it just fits my personal taste. I think that the animation of this movie looks really good. I don't really know what to expect from Netflix original animation or anything like that, because I haven't seen that many, I don't think. I've seen a few. I've definitely seen a few, because I've watched a few on this channel. Some have been really good animation, some have been just pretty good animation, but this one I think ranges toward the higher end. And other than that, I really don't have that much more to say about this movie. I think that this is a very fun adventure movie, another movie that's heavily underrated. People should give this movie a chance. I was reading through a few reviews on IMDb whenever I was done watching the movie just to see what other people were saying about it, and I agree with the comment that said that this movie isn't talked about because it's not a Disney movie. If you slap Disney on the front of this movie, everyone would love it. I agree wholeheartedly with that sentiment, because there are lots of movies out there like that could pass for Disney movies. They just don't have that big Walt Disney logo on it, and so people don't ever give them a chance. This one, I think, definitely deserves a chance, and if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. And like I said earlier, allegedly there is a sequel in development. I think that has been confirmed. I'm just saying allegedly until there's something concrete for us to look at, like a trailer or, something. I really enjoyed this movie, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend you go check it out. If you have seen it, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. If you haven't seen it, of course, go watch it and then come let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. But yeah, if you want to help me out here on YouTube, liking this video, commenting on this video, subscribing to the channel, or checking out some of my other videos, all help me grow the YouTube channel. I've done other animated movies, I've done live action movies, I've done TV shows, I'm playing through some video games on the channel right now. So if any of that sounds good to you, go check it out. And yeah, until next time, bye.